Why did Jimin cry so bitterly when Jungkook's eyes showed disappointment? What really happened behind closed doors on Jungkook's 28th birthday that made fans whisper about cracks in BTS's legendary friendship? Why was Taehyung the only one standing by Jungkook that night, while Jimin, his brother, his friend, his constant partner on stage, was absent? Could something as simple as missing a birthday truly trigger such a deep emotional wound in one of the world's most unshakable bonds? Or is there a bigger story hidden in the shadows, one that the public was never meant to see? The questions kept flooding social media timelines as ARMY around the globe pieced together fragments of the story, their hearts racing with shock and unease. Clickbait headlines screamed across platforms. Jimin's tears. Did Jungkook's heart break? The night Taehyung was the only one by Jungkook's side. Is BTS's brotherhood shaken? Fans who had worshipped their bond for over a decade were suddenly left gasping for answers. It all began with a night that was supposed to be filled with joy. Jungkook's 28th birthday. A day marked not just by candles and wishes, but by the weight of history, love, and unbreakable brotherhood. Or so fans thought. But when the night ended with Jimin crying, Jungkook silent in his disappointment, and Taehyung standing as the lone witness of loyalty, the meaning of brotherhood suddenly felt fragile. The birthday that changed everything, the night of September 1st, should have been unforgettable for Jungkook, not because of pain, but because of joy. For weeks, fans had anticipated what the youngest member of BTS would do for his 28th birthday. Would he surprise fans with a live broadcast? Would he spend it surrounded by his brothers, those who had walked with him from the very first day of their uncertain debut? Would it be a night filled with laughter, cake, and off-key singing that only true friends could share? The answers turned out to be both simpler and more complicated than anyone expected. When the clock struck midnight, Jungkook found himself in a room that felt emptier than it should have. The air was heavy with the kind of silence that creeps in when you expect noise, laughter, and chaos, but are instead met with a stillness you cannot name. And in that silence stood only one figure, Kim Taehyung, his closest confidant, his soulmate in friendship, the only one who had come. Taehyung brought warmth with him, no doubt. He brought his deep laugh, his playful comments, and a sincerity that Jungkook could always rely on. But behind Jungkook's smile, behind his polite gratitude, there was an ache he couldn't hide. His eyes kept glancing at the door, as though expecting it to swing open at any moment, revealing the one person whose absence stung more than any other. Park Jimin. Where was Jimin? Why hadn't he come? Fans didn't know the answer, and neither did Jungkook that night. What he knew was only this: Jimin's absence wasn't because of schedules or distance or impossible circumstances. It was simply absence. And when absence comes from the person you least expect, the wound cuts deeper than you can explain. Taehyung noticed it. He saw the way Jungkook's smile faded each time he checked his phone. He saw the way Jungkook sighed, the way his shoulders sagged with invisible weight. And for the first time in years, Taehyung saw something in Jungkook's eyes that startled him: disappointment. Not in a fan, not in work, not in himself, but in one of his brothers. The truth of that night began to spread slowly. Whispers turned into rumors, rumors into headlines, and headlines into storms. But the one piece of the puzzle that turned everything from rumor into heartbreak came days later, when Jimin, unable to hold his emotions any longer, was seen in tears. His confession shocked everyone. He knew Jungkook was disappointed in him. And for Jimin, that disappointment was unbearable. Jimin's silence, Jungkook's disappointment. For years, fans had admired the unshakable closeness between Jungkook and Jimin. They weren't just bandmates, they weren't just brothers in music. They were confidants, partners in laughter, anchors in storms. From the early days in cramped dorm rooms to the world's largest stages, they had leaned on each other with a bond that seemed unbreakable. Which is why Jimin's absence on Jungkook's birthday cut so much deeper than anyone could have anticipated. At first, many thought it was just a misunderstanding. Perhaps Jimin was caught up in a late-night schedule. Perhaps he was preparing something special and would appear later, carrying a cake or a gift. But as the hours passed and the candles melted away, it became clear he wasn't coming. and Jungkook felt it. He didn't need to say it out loud, his eyes told the story. Every fan who has followed BTS knows that Jungkook rarely speaks of disappointment in people he loves. He bottles it up, hides it under a smile, or transforms it into effort. But this time was different. The youngest member, the golden magne who gave so much of himself to his brothers, couldn't mask the ache of being let down. Taehyung, sitting by Jungkook's side, tried to lighten the mood.
He joked. He teased.
He even sang a birthday song louder than necessary, his deep voice booming in the quiet room. And Jungkook smiled, he truly did. But the smile never reached his eyes, and Taehyung knew why. Meanwhile, somewhere away from that room, Jimin was caught in a whirlwind of his own. At first, he believed missing Jungkook's birthday might not be so devastating. They had shared so many over the years. Perhaps he thought one absence wouldn't matter, that their bond was strong enough to withstand it. But as messages began to circulate, as photos emerged of Jungkook with only Taehyung by his side, reality crashed down on him. He hadn't just missed a party. He had missed a moment that mattered. And when Jimin saw the quiet disappointment in Jungkook's eyes later, captured in photos, in subtle fan observations, in whispers that traveled faster than wildfire, his heart broke. That was the moment he cried. The image of Jimin crying spread like lightning. It wasn't during a performance, not in front of cameras meant to capture staged drama, but in a raw, unguarded moment. His tears were heavy with guilt, with the weight of knowing he had hurt the person who once called him his brother for life. And those tears sent ARMY into a storm of emotions. Why did Jimin cry so much? Was it really just about a birthday? Or was it about something far deeper? A fear of losing the trust and warmth of someone who meant the world to him. The truth lingered in the air like a secret no one could fully grasp. Tears that spoke louder than words. The first time Jungkook saw Jimin's tears after his birthday, his chest tightened in a way he couldn't put into words. For Jungkook, disappointment was one thing. He had felt it before, in life and in friendships, but he rarely let it stay. He was the type to move forward, to let time heal, to focus on music, training, and the goals that stretched endlessly ahead. Yet this time was different. This time, the disappointment had come from someone he trusted most. Jimin's tears weren't ordinary tears either. They weren't the kind shed after a performance when emotions were high, nor the kind that flowed after exhaustion finally caught up with him. These were tears of guilt, of regret, of love mixed with fear. He didn't try to hide them, didn't laugh them away as he often did. Instead, he broke down, his voice shaking, his hands trembling, his body folding in on itself as though the weight of his own mistake was too heavy to carry, and Jungkook saw it all. For a long moment, silence filled the space between them. Jungkook didn't rush to comfort him. He didn't scold him either. He simply looked, his eyes a mixture of hurt and understanding, disappointment and affection. The youngest member of BTS had grown into a man who understood the complexity of emotions, and in that moment, he understood Jimin's pain just as deeply as he felt his own. But silence is its own kind of answer. And to Jimin, the silence spoke louder than words. "I know I hurt you," Jimin finally whispered, his voice breaking. "I should have been there. I should never have let you feel alone on that day. You waited for me, and I didn't come." Jungkook exhaled slowly. His eyes glistened, but no tears fell. He was too strong, too controlled, too careful with his emotions when it came to those he loved. And yet, the disappointment lingered in the space between them like a ghost. "You were always there before," Jungkook said quietly at last. "I thought this time would be the same." The words were simple, but they pierced through Jimin's heart like knives. It wasn't anger, it wasn't accusation, it was truth. And truth hurts more than rage ever could. Taehyung, who had been silent until now, finally stepped in. He had watched both sides, the pain in Jungkook's disappointment, the devastation in Jimin's guilt, and he knew the bond between them was too precious to let crumble.